So here we are. This is going to be the last video of this format where we'll discuss the rest of the items, sake and all sake dialogues. It is hard to believe that the project is almost over, but there are still things to discover. As usual, we'll quickly go over the disclaimers, legend, and sources. If it's not the first time around, feel free to skip ahead. Number 1, use common sense. Please do not assume that I have access to some secret true knowledge. I'm just entertained by reading Sekiro in Japanese. My lore theories are just theories, so treat them accordingly. Number 2, I am not a professional translator. I have never worked in localization. Yes, I will say that something is translated poorly and something is not, and it will be my personal point of view. Ultimately, my goal is to give you the information so you can see if the localization was good or not, whether something important was lost or not. My opinion is just that, and I choose to share it. Number 3, I am not an expert on Buddhism or Shintoism. I will leave links to the religious terms that we will encounter so you can read more on your own if you're interested. As usual, the transcriptions I give do not follow all academic rules and I don't think it's necessary. They're just here to represent the pronunciation in case you're curious. All sources I used for this research will be listed in the description box below, along with all the additional information that I referenced throughout the video, so you can read more if you're interested. There you will also find a link to my original blog post if you want to read it through. We'll start with Ceramic Shard, one of the most underappreciated items in the game. Its original name is Tohen, fragment of pottery or ceramic fragment. The localization is accurate. Breaking ceramic shards was a popular entertainment among Ashina boys. The original mentions something that I think is the name of this sport, wariko. Probably has to do with the verb waru, to break or to smash. Its original name is Nigirihai, literally fistful of ash. The description was localized accurately, but there are still a couple of interesting words used in the original. For example, mekuramashi, which is blinding someone's eyes, and irori, a traditional Japanese sunken hearth that usually looks like a square pit in the floor that historically served as source of heating, lighting, communal gathering, and also was used for cooking. You can see irori in every house in Hirata Estate and also in Mibu Village. Its original name is Kaeri Botoke, Buddha of Returning or Homeward Buddha. This item is very curious considering that the world is full of demonic Buddhas that the sculptor makes and all kinds of defiled Buddhas from the Senpo temple. This palm-sized Buddha is one of the 2 regular ones, the other one being the Buddha in the dilapidated temple that sends Wolf back in time. Wolf had it ever since his foster father found him. From the way it is phrased, I do think that Wolf already had it when Owl took him in. He held on to it all these years. It always seemed interesting to me that localization chose to localize the demonic Buddhas as sculptor's idol. In Japanese, they are kibutsu, demonic Buddhas. I am particularly entertained by the fact that demonic Buddha in Japanese is read the same way as a wooden Buddha from the Homeward Idol description, kibutsu and kibutsu. Let's talk about coin purses. Their descriptions are not much different from one another. They all share the last line, and the only things that are changed are the weight and how much sand they can store. We'll have a look at them anyway. Its original name is Karui Zenibukuro, light coin purse. It contains a small amount of sand and has a weight that brings reasonable joy. Its original name is Omotai Zenibukuro, heavy or weighty coin purse. Unlike its more lightweight predecessor, it fits a lot of sen and has a weight that brings considerable joy. Its original name is Hachikiresona Zenibukuro, a coin purse that is about to burst. It is indeed overflowing with sen. Its weight makes a faint smile peek through, even on Wolf's face. Koboreru said about a smile in this context means to peek through to become visible, although normally it is not. Niger Monocular's original name is Yotakazutsu, Niger's cylinder or Niger's tube. The description further specifies that it is a takezutsu, bamboo cylinder. Looking through this tube with one eye with undivided concentration enables one to see without obstruction even further away. The original description also says that the Niger are personal employees of a shin. The next line is very expressive in Japanese. It says, protecting the rooftops of the Ashina castle, they're glaring at outside invaders. It is true that not much escapes their eyes because they noticed me before I even knew where they were. What a sad item. Its original name is Anayama no Tagata, Anayama's promissory note. the last item of Anayama Matabe's closed shop. Even 1 sen is money. He refused to stop his business until the end. I feel bad for being suspicious of Anayama during my first playthrough. I was sure he was a Patches character, especially given all the patches on his clothes and his eye patch. I always expected him to push me down a well somewhere. But then he kinda grew on me, and even though he was a bandit and remained a marauder, it was still hard not to be somehow charmed by him. And he was an honest businessman, at least to Wolf. If you pay him for the info and he tries to give you a lead to Flame Vent that you already have, he'll apologize and give you oil for free. One more bottle gourd. The item is called Goshikimai, 5-color rice. The description is pretty accurate. It is yet another Hyotan, bottle gourd, but not a curved one, but rather a regular one, like healing gourd. If spread on the ground, marks the way. It is the only white gourd out of all the gourds. For fertility, the original uses hojo, good harvest, the same word that the Child of Rejuvenation uses when spawning rice. If you ring the bell on Mount Kongo, you'll get a little surprise in return, the Bell Demon. Its original name is Shoki, literally Bell Demon. The localization makes it seem like the Iron Bell is a proper name, but the original just says Senpo Temple's Bell. The one possessed by the Bell Demon will experience hardship, however, when defeating enemies, may find a little blessing in their remains. When you get the Bell Demon, the kanji on your screen localized as Sinister Burden are Yakutsuki, possessed or haunted by evil. When you use this item to rid yourself of the Bell Demon, the kanji are Yakubarai, evil purged. There are 4 different types of sake in the game, and 3 characters that you can treat to it, Isshin, Emma, and Sculptor. In return, you'll get unique dialogue that tells you more either about character relationships, their personal backgrounds, or Ashina's past. We'll talk about each of the sake items and have a look at dialogues they prompt in case the Japanese versions have more details. All sake items have a shared line that hints at what you're supposed to do with them. Sake is a drink meant for sharing. In this video, I'll focus only on the parts that are really different in Japanese. I'll also comment on some curious word choices in the original. If you'd like a more detailed analysis of the things that are slightly different between the 2 versions, please follow the link in the description to my blog post. All the tiny stuff will be there. Unrefined sake is called Doburoku, which is a name for unrefined cloudy sake. For bottle, the original uses Tokkuri, which specifically means sake bottle, across all descriptions. This cloudy sake, beloved by Shin Ashina, is quite strong and full-bodied. But at the same time, it is also known for easily getting one sick from drinking. The word waruyoi can mean either getting sick from drinking or becoming violent or disorderly when drunk. I think the localization did a great job translating the last line. All sake item pictures depict a sake bottle and a sake cup, and with unrefined sake you can see that both the bottle and the cup are unpolished and imperfect, just like the drink itself. When Wolf shares Doburoku with Emma, they have a conversation about Emma's sword training. Remember that unrefined sake is known to get one drunk rather quickly, that's why it is more of a dialogue than a monologue, and Wolf has a rare opportunity to ask Emma something and actually get some answers. Emma treated the Doburoku is a little bit more open, and she even teases Wolf slightly by saying, "A blade? I'm a doctor." So in English, Wolf says, "I do not believe your skill counts as a mere passing interest." In the original, for skill, he uses kenki, which is not really a skill, but more the way you carry your sword or something along those lines. Then Emma says that she only wants to kill a demon if one were to appear. However, the bigger question is why this conversation happened at all. Why would Wolf ask her about her training if he had supposedly never seen her fight? She doesn't even carry a sword on her. When Wolf fights her in the Shura ending, she brings her sword in hand. How did he know she can fight with a sword, let alone that her skill is more than a passing interest? So either the word kinky, that is not really in any dictionary I could find, carries more meaning, or Wolf knew Emma, maybe not personally, from before the Hirata estate incident. It always seemed bizarre to me that all the dads knew each other well, fought the same battles, shared sake, and generally spent quite a lot of time together, and yet it seems like there is a missing link between Wolf and the other 2 kids, Emma and Genichiro. So maybe there isn't. When Wolf offers Doburoku to Sculptor, it reminds him of Isshin and of the time he lost his left arm. The dialogue was localized accurately. Sculptor remembers how Isshin cut off his left arm because the flames of hatred began consuming him, and he warns Wolf to beware of Shura's shadow. When you treat Isshin Todoboroku, you get a chance to discuss Genichiro and his mysterious mentor Tomoe. The localization is quite accurate, although there are still some curious details to be found in the original. When Isshin says that looking into Tomoe's eyes was like being drawn into the depth of the ocean, in Japanese he says minasoko, bottom of the river or a sea. To describe his fascination with her, he uses mitoreru, to be fascinated, captivated, or enchanted by something or someone. To be almost killed with a blade because I was captivated by her. I, Isshin, lived a long life, but that was the only time. Ashina sake is called exactly that. Ashina no sake, ashina sake. The localization says that it does not contain the water from the fountainhead, when the original says that it very much does. This sake, made from the pure water flowing out from the fountainhead, is widely beloved by the people of Ashina. The confusion lies in the verb nagareizuru, a dated attributive form of more familiar nagarederu. When I see a verb form that I do not recognize, I usually assume this is some kind of archaic form, and more often than not, it turns out to be true. The same here, nagareizuru is an archaic attributive verb form that in this example acts as an attribute to pure water flowing from fountainhead. It is easily translatable into English because English verbs also have attributive forms, like flowing here. I think the localization might have been confused by this verb form and they just took it for the negative, hence does not contain water from the fountainhead. It does. This verb is actually used multiple times throughout the game by different characters, Emma and Isshin for sure, and it was always translated correctly. If you look closely at the picture, you'll see that the bottle bears the Ashina clan sigil, Japanese iris. When you treat Emma to Ashina sake, she tells Wolf about her upbringing and becoming a doctor. You've been doing medical work ever since you were a child. In Japanese, he says, you've been assisting a doctor since you were a child. I used to compete with my fellow disciples to treat patients. In the original for fellow disciples, she uses the word anideshi, senior pupil of the same master. Emma must have been the youngest of Dogen's disciples. At the end, she talks about a difficult shinobi patient who said very little and she had difficulties treating him because she didn't know where he was hurt or how much pain he was in. In English, she says, it was maddening. In Japanese, she uses heikousuru, to be at a loss, to be at one's wits, which I think better describes her state at that time. And now we come to the part that was truly lost in translation. In English, she says, none of this sounds familiar to you. But in Japanese, it is, he spoke as if it was someone else's problem. The sentence is kind of tricky to translate, but I'm pretty sure she is deep in her thoughts and in her memory about treating the sculptor when she was young. With this sentence, she still continues that story about how sculptor wasn't saying much and she couldn't tell how badly he was hurting. He spoke as if it was someone else's problem, meaning that he was numb and dissociating his wounds from himself. I think she's talking about the time when Isshin cut off his arm, and probably she and Dogen treated him afterwards. She's not comparing him and Wolf in a feat of friendly banter, as the English localization makes it seem. She's deep in her thoughts remembering the sculptor, whom she loves very much. After this sentence, Wolf asks her what she's talking about, and she refuses to elaborate by saying, no, it's nothing. When you treat sculptor to Ashina sake, he gives you a bit of his background with Emma and Dogen. I owed him my life, and we could say that you owe him your life as well. In Japanese it is, I am deeply indebted to him, and you are too. In other words, that prosthetic arm is Dogen's legacy. For legacy, the original uses the word wasuregatami, keepsake or a memento from a dead person. Sculptor finishes his story by saying that even though he abandoned his shinobi ways, the prosthetic was the one thing that he couldn't leave, and this piece of dialogue echoes the lore of prosthetic arts. When treated to Ashina sake, Isshin tells the story of his rebellion. Isshin calling Wolf my boy in the English version always struck me as weird. There is nothing of the sort in the original, and I don't think their relationships warrants this kind of behavior. Could you tell me about the rebellion? In the original, Wolf uses the word kunitori, stealing the country. When Isshin hears this word, he laughs at it and explains that they did not steal the country, but took back what was theirs. Where the waters flowed straight from the source. As you've probably guessed, in the original he says, water flowing from the fountainhead. We couldn't even pray at the waters from the springs. In Japanese it is, we were not even allowed to worship the water from fountainhead. But now it is a place of death. In the original it is, but now we are on the verge of death. Ishin is referring to the overall situation that Ashina faces, not to the land itself. It is a bitter thing indeed. In the original, oh, the irony. This dialogue is actually a good piece of history. Ashina clan lived on this magical land for a long time and worshipped the water from the fountainhead. That's why they were considered heretics. They were then overrun and forced into submission, and they were not allowed to worship the fountainhead water anymore. However, when Japan fell into chaos, Ishin is referring to the period of warring states, the Sengoku period. The Ashina saw an opportunity to take back their land. But now, only some 20 years later, Ashina is again on the brink of defeat. Oh, the irony, they fought so hard to take back what's theirs, and yet they will soon lose it all again. This piece of dialogue further reinforces the lore of Ashina art. Ashina's style has a deep connection to the flow of the fountainhead waters. It also gives some context to the floating passage that is considered heresy despite being an Ashina combat art. It was always weird to me why it would be heresy if Ishin knew that Tomoe was training Genichiro and had no problem with it. Now I understand that floating passage is most likely considered heretical in general because it comes from the place that Ashina heretics are worshipping. Its original name is Saruzake, monkey sake or monkey booze. In case you were wondering, this is a real thing. Monkeys stash fruits in hollow trees or rocks. The fruit ferments, and the result is a sake-like liquid. I absolutely adored the picture of monkey booze and that there is a little hollow branch that acts as a cup. Here we can witness a curious but typical case of mistranslation. That's what happens when you write words in hiragana and not in kanji. The localization says that this sake is created by dew pulled in a hollow tree, because they thought that the word uro is this one, uro, which means rain and dew. However, here it is most certainly this uro, which means hollow or cavity. Sake accumulated in a hollow tree. Japanese is dangerous like that. Many words sound the same, and if they're written in hiragana and not in kanji, you have to rely on context. Honestly speaking, the context is rather clear here. I don't know how alcohol can be created by dew, especially considering that the next paragraph explains everything in more detail, and the localization translates it correctly. More than that, the next paragraph literally has the same phrase, which is now correctly translated as tree hollow. Fruits hidden by monkeys in tree hollows ferment and sometimes accidentally turn into sake. Brutally harsh flavor in Japanese is burning or harsh to the point one starts breathing fire. There are those with strange taste who are fond of this drink. Curiously, ai in suru means not only to be fond of a drink, but also to drink habitually, which I think holds true for the sculptor who spent his youth training with monkeys in the Sunken Valley and had access to this weird type of sake. When treated to monkey booze, Emma tells Wolf about a monkey who gave her a rice ball when she was little. I seem to have a strong connection with monkeys. In Japanese, for strong connection, Emma uses enbukai, having a deep bond or a shared fate. The same word is used to describe the connection between Ashina and the fountainhead waters. Yes, I was rescued by a monkey after all. Interesting that here, instead of rescued, she uses hirowareta, picked up, or found and picked up, which is the exact same word that is always used when talking about how Owl picked up Wolf from the battlefield and took him in the same way orangutan found Emma on the battlefield and took her in. And after that, Wolf goes, because, well, this story so far is exactly what happened to him at the exact same time. I remember being angry at that. She wasn't angry at all, she was just jealous because she too wanted the rice ball. It seemed delicious. And then she says that the monkey gave it to her. At this point, Wolf realizes that she's talking about the sculptor and says, "What a kind monkey." She laughs so warmly, agreeing that he was a very kind monkey indeed. When you treat sculptor to monkey booze, he reminisces about his time training in the Sunken Valley with monkeys and tells you about Kingfisher. There was no proper master for the likes of us. In Japanese it is, there were no suitable mentors any longer. I always read the English version as, we did not want to serve anyone, but in Japanese, sculptor says that there wasn't a proper mentor for them, so they went to the valley to learn from monkeys. The any longer part reads as if they had learned everything from every available master and there was no one who could teach them anything new. And here sculptor tells Wolf how he used to listen to his partner's Nakimushi whistling when she used her weird ring. We talked in detail about Malcontent's ring in the corresponding prosthetic video. When treated to monkey booze, Ishin will also talk about Shura and cutting off sculptor's arm. So this is what it's like to breathe fire. Isshin quotes a part of Monkey Sake's description that says, "So harsh it feels like you breathe fire." They don't even remember why, simply enraptured, they kill solely for the joy it brings them. In Japanese it is, "What for they're killing, they don't remember even that, their hearts seized only by the joy of simply killing." If you drink monkey booze with Isshin after you choose to break the Iron Code, he'll tell you that he was mistaken and there is no Shura in you, and that if Shura were to appear, he would cut them down himself. If you drink monkey booze with him before you choose to break the Iron Code, he'll tell you that he sees Shura's shadow in your eyes and warns you. In English, "Give me cause and I will kill you." In Japanese, it's actually the opposite. He says, "Only it seems I won't be the one to cut you down." This sentence was confusing to me, but I think I get it now. When he really thinks about the possibility of fighting Wolf, he knows that Emma, who was sword trained for the sole purpose of killing Shura, would have more chances to bring him down. So he threatens Wolf that there is someone else he should fear. And indeed, if Wolf turns Shura, it's Emma who tries to defeat him first. This sentence, together with Emma's unrefined sake dialogue, is actually a little hint that there is a scenario where Wolf might meet her in battle. Interesting, but this type of sake doesn't actually have sake in its name. It is called just Ryusen, Dragon Spring. Localization seems to think that Dragon Spring is a special water source, while it is just an alternative name for fountainhead waters because, the dragon. In the previous video, we discussed that the people of Ashina consider the fountainhead waters an object of pilgrimage, hence the Year of Dragon Spring pilgrimage to the fountainhead waters. This sake is just the best quality sake that is brewed by the master brewer from Ashina rice and so on and so forth, and that is why it is so special. Dragon Spring is a supreme type of sake brewed by the master brewer of Ashina. The water from Fountainhead fully brings out the flavor of the bountiful harvest of Ashina's rice. If you look closely, you can see the Ashina sigil on the bottle, but the style is quite different, more artistic, if you will. It reminds me a lot of how Japanese iris flowers are painted in the environments of the Fountainhead Palace. Maybe this depiction was the original one from which the current sigil was then fashioned. When you treat Emma to Dragon Spring, she shares her memories of parties that were held in Ashina Castle once Lord Isshin got his hands on this special sake. Everyone would start gathering at Ashina Castle, and a rather rowdy party would ensue. The word used is shuen, drinking party. In general, the localization is pretty accurate, even though in the original Emma doesn't say that she distinctly recalls Genichiro practicing in the back of the castle. She just states it as a fact. I think this monologue ties quite nicely into the one from Ashina Sake, when she says she couldn't stand the smell of sake when she was younger. Probably that's why when everybody was drinking Dragon Spring, she preferred to leave and take a long walk. Dragon Spring brings out Sculptor's memories about Emma and how he found her on the battlefield. Side by side, this dialogue and the one you get when treating Emma to monkey booze make a complete story. "I found her on the battlefield." Again, the original is very consistent and Sculptor uses hirotta. "I picked her up from the battlefield." She crept up slowly towards me, her eyes fixed, unwavering on the rice I held in my hand. In Japanese it is, "Standing still, she stared straight at the rice ball that I held." It became too much to bear, so I gave it to her. In the original, "It was such a bother, I gave it to her." I suppose it didn't really matter where she ended up. One thing's for sure, she is happier for the fact that she wasn't raised by a shinobi. In Japanese it is, "Well, wherever Emma ended up, she was happier for the fact it wasn't with a shinobi." What a gut punch this part is. You know who ended up with a shinobi and was raised by one? Wolf. Although, if previously I thought this part of the dialogue to be directed at Wolf, like "You were raised by a shinobi, how did that work out for you?" Now I think that it is genuine regret. I feel like Sculptor really wanted Emma to stay with him, but he knew that it wouldn't be the best option for her. Out of all the adoptive fathers in the game, I think the Sculptor really is the one to have his way with kids in the best way possible. He loves Emma very much, even though in his story he says, "It was such a bother, I gave a rice ball to her and then she started following me for some reason," like it all happened against his will. Out of all the parent-child relationships in the game, I think Emma and Sculptors are the absolute best. And because of that, there is a great deal more heartbreak. When treated to Dragon Spring, Isshin will tell the other side of Emma's story about drinking parties in Ashina Castle. The localization did a good job translating it. Ishin would get his hands on Dragon Spring, and certain people, getting a whiff of it, would gather to be treated to Dragon Spring. He talks about Gobu, Lady Butterfly, Dogen, and Owl. The only detail that was localized a little bit differently than it is in the original is the cunning owl. The original uses the word mikakedaoshi, meaning false impression or mere show. I think this characteristic just continues the line of contrast between Owl's size and the fact that he got drunk incredibly easily. That is why Ishin says that Owl, being a giant, was a mere show. Sake items turned out to be quite lost in translation, so I'm happy I got to talk about them. Sake dialogues have way more depth than I gave them credit for, especially if you hear all of them and can put them side by side to piece together the story. Well, this video marks the end of our item research. Yes, there are still things we haven't discussed yet, like some notes and prayer necklaces. We'll talk about them when we explore their associated areas. In the next part of the project, we'll travel the Ashina lands, look at all the places and all the environmental pieces that have names in the art book, and cover the rest of the items. Who knows what fascinating things await us there? I haven't really decided yet what these videos will look like, probably just walking around the areas talking about stuff interlaced with the usual slideshow. Don't forget to check the description for relevant links and more reading. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.